The president of Zambia got some instant commentary at a news conference on the grounds of the presidential compound. Just as he started to talk about his political opponent, a monkey, playing in a tree above him, made his commentary on the president's head.
For education, opposition are against. You need to deal. Look at this. Look at this. I shouldn't do it. That's the one I'm sending to Mr. Sata.
The president continued his speech amid laughter from the audience of journalists and diplomats. Monkeys are common visitors to the president's compound, but not usually monkeys representing the opposition party. Dan Sheneman, NBC News.
Governor Reagan, Mr. President.
Hello?
There you are.
Hello? Mr. President? Hope I didn't get you out of bed.
No, I'm up, although I'm still trying to sleep on Oriental time, and it's not working very well.
Well, that was a bad vote, wasn't it?
Mr. President, the reason I called was, I know it is not easy to give a suggestion or to advice to the President of the United States, but I just feel so strongly that we can't, and in view of 72, we can't just sit and take this and continue as if nothing had happened. And I had a suggestion for an action that I'd like to be so presumptuous as to suggest. My every instinct says, get the hell out of that kangaroo court and let it sink. It has occurred to me that the United States, the people, I just know are, first of all, they don't like the UN to begin with.
That's right.
And it seemed to me that if you brought Mr. Bush back to Washington to let them sweat for about 24 hours as to what you were thinking of, and then if you went on television to the people of the United States and said that Mr. Bush was going back to the UN to participate in debate and discussion, to present our views and so forth, but he would not participate in any votes. But the United States would not vote and would not be bound by the votes of the UN, because it is a debating society. You don't have to say that, but it is a debating society, and so we'd be there, our presence would be there, but we would just not participate in their votes. I think it would put those bums in the perspective they belong.
It sure would.
And last night, I tell you, to watch that thing on television as I did, to see those monkeys from those African countries, damn them, they're still uncomfortable wearing shoes.
Well, and then the tail wags the dog there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The tail wags the dog.
Yes.
Well, give my best to Nancy, and I'll be back in touch with you about this.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, good evening, everybody. You aren't supposed to see that yet. Hello! Good evening, welcome. We're here to talk about one thing, and that is monkeys. Actually, there's gonna be way more than just monkeys in this story. Let me tell you about the genesis of how we got here. But first, let me welcome you all. Hello, Corey Flockstra Show. You're the one I have to thank the most for this, because if you're not subscribed already to the Corey Flockstra Show, you should be. Greatest stream on the internet. Now, my friend Corey here did a fantastic video recently about Ham the Space Chimp. Fantastic video, well done, well researched. And I thought to myself, you know, there's more to this story. I know there is. So I went digging, and oh boy, Corey, my friend, you sent me down a rabbit hole that I wasn't expecting. I thought I knew all there was to know about the space race. But oh no, my friends, my intrepid listeners, what our friend Corey Flockstra has sent me on this evening is a tale of poop and pee and boners and spies, and not all of it is going to come from the monkeys. But first, if you like what you see, hear, smell, feel, touch, taste, in this time of economic woe, consider giving a donation at buymeacoffee.com/mooseheaven. Every dollar you spend goes towards national defense. I mean scientific research. Now, let's get on to why we're all here. I have a proposition for you all. I think that the achievements of monkeys to our society and our science, our culture, should be recognized more. And therefore, my fellow Americans, I proposition to you that we should set aside a specific certain period of time to look back on the achievements of monkeys. And therefore, here at Moose Heaven, we are declaring this Monkey History Month. That's right. We're here to look back and glorify the achievements of our primate friends and the sacrifices they have made for science. But we can't just start with monkeys. No, 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 no. For there's a wider tale to tell. We need to extrapolate. You saw that Putin interview. We need to dig back into the history of how we got to space monkeys. Because space monkeys didn't just fall from the upper atmosphere on their own. So, let us explore how the space race was started and how monkeys went to space. Aboard stolen Nazi rockets with stolen Nazi rocket scientists. But we'll get there. But first, it's 1957 and oh my God! The Soviet Union has just launched the first satellite. A spinning metal ball that goes beep, 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 beep. And it has the world in a panic.
Today, a new moon is in the sky, a 23-inch metal sphere placed in orbit by a Russian rocket. Here, an artist's conception of how the feat was accomplished. A 3-stage rocket. Number 1, the booster, in the class of an intercontinental missile. Its weight estimated at 50 tons. The smaller second stage took over at 5,000 miles an hour and carried on to the highest point reached. 500 miles up, the artificial moon is boosted to a speed counterbalancing the pull of gravity and released. You are hearing the actual signals transmitted by the Earth-circling satellite, one of the great scientific feats of the age.
Beep, beep. Oh my God. Beep, beep. Also, guess what? I have a bonus game for everybody who's listening along. Take a drink or count along. Every time you hear small step or great leap tonight, preconditioning? I don't know. But let's get back. Oh my God, beep beep.
This man stands on the threshold of outer space. It's the biggest story of the year, possibly the #1 story of the century. This launching of the Russian satellite, which brings into the realm of possibility all those wild science fiction stories of interplanetary travel. Watch it. It's fascinating. This animation is a graphic portrayal of how a satellite operates. This story of the Russian satellite burst upon a startled world early in October. Russia announcing she had shot a man-made moon 560 miles into space, where it was circling the Earth at the dizzy speed of 18,000 miles per hour. It sent its familiar beep-beep back to Earth, was tracked by radio and by sight as it hurtled across the heavens. The satellite was launched as part of IGY, the International Geophysical Year, a gigantic study of the Earth and its surroundings by 64 nations from both sides of the Iron Curtain, in common effort to benefit mankind.
And I'm sure it's only going to be for scientific research, right?
CBS Television presents a special report on Sputnik 1, the Soviet space satellite. Douglas Edwards reporting.
Until 2 days ago, that sound had never been heard on this Earth. Suddenly, it has become as much a part of 20th century life as the whir of your vacuum cleaner. It's a report from man's farthest frontier, the radio signal transmitted by the Soviet Sputnik, the first man-made satellite as it passed over New York earlier today. One of the places where the progress of the satellite is being watched most closely is the Hayden Planetarium in New York. CBS News correspondent Richard C. Hottelet reports from there now.
Doug, we're in the great dome of the Hayden Planetarium in New York, and I have with me Dr. Kenneth Franklin, an astronomer on the planetarium staff. Dr. Franklin, can you tell us where the Sputnik is now and how it's moving?
Right now it's north of Auckland, New Zealand, and moving southeast. It will be, in 10 minutes, about 1,500 miles north of Little America.
Good evening, Manu. How close is Sputnik to you?
And in about 24 minutes, it will be over Santiago, Chile. And in about 50 minutes from now, it will be over Spain.
Well, it looks as though it'll be missing the United States on this trip.
That's quite correct, it will.
But it does come over here periodically, doesn't it?
It comes over here at least twice a day and maybe more.
Now, getting back to this track, is it possible that it is transmitting a code, not just a beep signal for radio listening?
Yes, it's quite possible that it's transmitting a code, but we don't realize what the code is, of course.
Well, Dr. Newell, what about the vital question that everybody is thinking about? Why and how did the Russians beat us to the draw?
Now, sir, what do you think about this achievement of the Russians?
I think it's a remarkable thing. My only regret is that we couldn't get there first.
What do you think this is going to be due to our prestige?
I don't think it's going to enhance it any at this time, but I imagine we will be able to catch up and maybe even pass them on the way.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's frightening. We should find out what they're doing that we're not doing, and we should do something about it very quickly.
What do you think?
Well, I think Russia's accomplishments are greater than ours, and I'm not too disturbed about it, but I feel that the United States will succeed eventually in putting a man into space.
And you?
Well, I think that, Russia's getting into space really bothers me, because it's making the Cold War between Russia and the United States, more intense. There's going to be more tension in world peace.
I doubt whether this was actually accomplished. The man seemed to be hidden for 2-3 days, and they could say anybody did the situation.
Smart man.
If they actually accomplish it, they would have announced it immediately. What is your feeling about this Soviet accomplishment?
Well, as usual, they're ahead of us, a little step ahead. But that doesn't mean much, actually. It means that they took a risk that we didn't dare take, probably, because it's too dangerous for a man.
You're not particularly worried about their getting there first?
You know, the world has always been on the edge of catastrophe since it exists. I don't think it's much worse now than it has ever been. If you read the history, you see every generation has a terror of being destroyed completely or something like that. I mean, nowadays it's exactly the same with a little more, I'd say, a little more actual danger because the scale is much larger.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A nihilist that believes in nothing. So, right out the gate, the Soviets beat us to outer space. And right out the gate, let me just say, because tonight we're gonna get into a tale of rockets and missiles, intercontinental ballistic ones. Same difference, same thing. And right out the gate, dear God, did the Soviets come swinging with the R-7. Holy shit. One of the largest intercontinental ballistic missiles right out the gate. And that's what they used to put Sputnik in space. This thing. This little shiny metal ball that went beep beep had everybody on edge. It caught America off guard. Because let's be clear, and you're probably going to hear this several times throughout this presentation. Such if you can put a satellite into space, you can put a man into space, and if you can put a man into space, then you can put a thermonuclear device into space. And so America was on edge. They had Sputnik fever. But guess what? Not everybody was caught off guard. Check this out. June 27, 1957, the weekly summary for the CIA. What's it about? Soviet preparations for early launching of an Earth satellite. The National Archives is fun. Corey, you sent me down a rabbit hole, sir. Thank you. And this is just the tip of the space iceberg. And we haven't even gotten to the monkeys. Check this out. You want your JFK connections? Well, here you go. 6 Degrees of JFK. Alan Dulles, director of the CIA, to the Secretary of State. Dear Mr. Secretary, I have been following with great interest the progress in the development of the Earth satellite vehicle plans. I should like to state the concern of this agency with both the first launching of the Earth satellite and its possible use in advanced form to collect intelligence data. In addition to the cogent scientific arguments advanced in the support of the development of the Earth satellites, there is little doubt but what the nation that first successfully launches the Earth satellite and thereby introduces the age of space travel will gain incalculable international prestige and recognition. In many respects, it will be comparable to the first release of nuclear energy. Our scientific community, as well as the nation, would gain invaluable respect and confidence should our country be the first to launch the satellite. Consequently, I feel the psychological impact of this development on friendly, neutral, and communist-controlled countries, particularly when we are anticipating a prolonged state of Cold War, is one of the major arguments justifying its prompt development. Allen Dulles, director of the CIA. So not everybody was caught off guard by old beep beep. Nevertheless, and here's where it gets real weird. Because a month after Soviets launched their Sputnik 1, they're already back at it again. To celebrate the anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, the Soviets decide to do what I think is probably, arguably, what makes the most sense if you're celebrating the anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. How do you celebrate that? You become the first to murder a dog in space. So, just a month later, the Soviets are already back at it again.
A multi-stage carrier rocket of a new design with foolproof precision controls put the satellite into its computed orbit. That cryptic announcement from a Moscow broadcast, coupled with reference to new sources of power, pinpoint Russia's second Earth satellite, transmitting the now familiar beep beep. But this time, listening posts are recording signals from a satellite weighing about a half-ton against the 184 pounds of the first Sputnik. Also, Sputnik number 2 is 1,056 miles out in space, nearly double the altitude of the Pioneer man-made moon, which, by the way, is still up there after 500 circuits of the globe. It's radio dead. As we all know, Sputnik number 2 also has a passenger, a dog, a living creature far in outer space for the first time, making global circuits at nearly 18,000 miles an hour. In Russia, there appeared to be differences over the life expectancy of the dog inside an air-conditioned space cabin. In the United States, the headquarters in Washington for Operation Vanguard is picking up the signals of Sputnik II. From coast to coast, scientists are alerted. Here, 100 antennas at Stanford University in California can track the satellite even after its transmitter gives out. Meanwhile, the signals are bright and clear. And apparent, too, as the whole world follows the new Sputnik, is the fact that the super missile race is on in earnest. For the launching of the heavier Mutnik, as they've nicknamed it, means Russia probably has an operational intercontinental ballistic missile. Next on Russia's space timetable could be a rocket landing on the moon. They're letting the world guess while Mutnik zooms along.
Oh no, this is terrifying. Russia's developing intercontinental ballistic missiles, shooting dogs into space. But I know what you're all thinking because, bare disclaimer, there's going to be a lot of animals harmed in the making of this stream. So just fair warning, but I have a theory, and I'll propose it in a bit as to why monkeys. Nevertheless, I know what you're all thinking. I am worried too. What about the dog? You're telling me that the Soviets shot a dog into space? How's the dog? You didn't say anything about the dog. How's the dog? Is the dog okay? Please tell me the dog's okay.
Meantime, the Soviet Union was ready to launch its second punch in a row, Sputnik 2. Aboard this new satellite, Laika was to be the Earth's first traveler into space. Here is Laika in his capsule, which will be placed inside the satellite. There were instruments to test his reaction to cosmic rays, radiation, heat, cold, and weightlessness. In these exclusive Soviet films, Sputnik 2 is shown in its pre-launch preparation. The Russian satellite weighed 1,120 pounds, 10 times heavier than the first Sputnik. On November 3rd, 1957, commemorating the 40th anniversary of the Russian Revolution, the Earth's second artificial satellite went into orbit. The second Sputnik was not only a tremendous scientific achievement in itself, but in the information received on Laika's long flight into space, the Soviets gained a priceless advantage in any forthcoming race to put a man in space.
Now, and as we've discussed before, if you can put a dog into space, then you can put a man into space. And if you can put a man into space, then you can put a ballistic missile armed with a nuclear warhead into space. But you know that already. But how's the dog? You didn't say how the dog was. Fuck the scientific research and data collected. How be the dog? You didn't say anything about the dog. Well, Mr. Corey Flockstra, you sent me down a rabbit hole, sir, because I thought I knew about Laika. I thought I knew about Laika, the Soviet space dog, but oh my goodness, I found a rabbit hole, guys, and Mr. Corey Flockstra is to thank for that. How be the dog? How's the dog doing? How is that space butt doing? Well, are you ready to see some Soviet propaganda, guys? Strap in. Let me tell you a story about the dog in the rocket.
This is the story of the Russian space dog.
That's not the same dog. That's not the same dog.
And how it was trained for its fantastic job. These movie-tone pictures are the first newsreel story of an event that has amazed the world. Limonchek or Laika and others of the same breed learn like this. They have a pressurized space kennel, and they seem to like it.
Oh, I'm sure they love it.
Now for the first picture released in the West of a Russian rocket takeoff.
Wow, that looks super real.
A small automatic camera films their reactions at a height of about 60 miles.
That's not the same
It certainly
dog.
appears that the dogs are reasonably content, even if they don't know what's coming off.
They look super anxious.
The return to Earth is made by parachute, and in these training exercises, it evidently works all right. The idea is, of course, that if a dog can do it, man should be able to do it too. This dog may well be the forerunner that points the way to journeys to the moon. And who knows, further still.
See, guys, happy ending. Shut up, bitch. The dog was okay. See, look. Нет, dog is happy. Dog loves space. Space is like second home to dog. Dog love it. He loves space. What? What is happening here? Those are two different dogs. Corey, you sent me down a rabbit hole, sir, because how did I never notice this before? That's Laika, right? that's Laika, right? Or is it that that's Laika, right? That's Laika, right? Right? Because sometimes Laika in her capsule looks like this. Sometimes Laika in her capsule looks like this. What?
Weird.
How did I never notice this? Those are two different dogs, and if you say Spirit, that's just some other dog from the Soviet space program. You're probably right. It probably is some dog, because the Soviets were very proficient at killing dogs in space. They rounded up strays off the streets and just shot them into space on R-7 rockets, so it's plausible they had a lot of dogs. But that's not my point. My point is, when the Reds say, "Niet, dog loves space. Dog is doing fine. It is like second home to him. Dog is happy. Dog loves space. Space dog is fine." When they're saying space dog is fine and space dog looks like this, or does space dog look like this? I hope you're putting F's in the chat for the dog and not for the stream. Because no, niet, dog is happy. Dog is fine. Dog loves space. Dog looks, sometimes like this. Sometimes like this. Sometimes dog is on stamp. He look like this. Sometimes dog is on stamp and he look like this. Sometimes dog is on stamp and he look like both. What's going on here? Weird.
Weird.
I'll say. Nevertheless, let me tell you what really happened. Because I didn't know that there was a different story about Laika. I didn't know. Now, from all the F's in chat, I'm guessing that you guys already have an idea what actually happened to Laika. But our friend Corey here put me down a rabbit hole. I did not know that there were at least three different historical recollections from the Reds about what actually happened to Laika. Did you know that they shoot this dog, which is either that dog or the other dog or some dog, I don't know, but some dog they shoot up into space. And for the first few days, it's dog loves space. Dog is doing fine. Look on monitor. Dog is happy. Dog loves space. Are you sure? Because that doesn't look like the same dog you showed me earlier. And he doesn't look very happy. He looks like he's panting and very distressed. And are you sure that this is a live broadcast from space? Because I'm pretty sure I just saw somebody's hand reach from off screen and adjust something. Okay, show is over. You go to Gulag now. That was the original version of Laika. And then after it became apparent that the Soviets couldn't produce a living dog, the story became, and for the majority of time, was dog is dead. Dog died, but he was euthanized peacefully. Don't ask how. Because, and I have to make this point, I'm not one of those wackadoo flat earth people. However, there always has been a certain amount of, just trust me, bro, in the whole space thing. Can we agree about that? And I think it started with the Soviets, for sure. Yeah, just trust me, bro. Dog was euthanized in space peacefully. Don't ask how we did it. And for the longest time, people just accepted that that's what happened to Laika. And as you probably already know, it wasn't until 2002 that the truth finally came out that Doug died horribly. Doug died horrible death. What really happened to Laika is they shot a dog up into space with no thought about how they were ever going to bring the dog back. There was no consideration, despite what the Soviets were saying about, oh yes, we are shooting dogs up daily and bringing them back. Our space program is much more advanced. I don't believe it, because why wouldn't you work in some sort of retrieval program for Laika then? But there was none, and Laika died a painful death in space, overheating in her cabin. I'm sure you all know that. But did you know that there was international public outcry? Yes! People were not happy about this when they found out that they shot a dog into space just to kill it for scientific research. Is the dog's corpse still up there? No. After several revolutions through space, the dog burned up in orbit, or what was left of it. Rest in peace, Laika. My favorite placard is "Send up Khrushchev instead." So it's not like there wasn't outcry, but I'm not surprised that people accepted this. It was only a few years ago that people accepted this from the National Council of American-Soviet Friendship, distributed through the American-Soviet Medical Society. I'm sure that they only have the most advanced medical tech here to display to us, right? Right?
The artificial blood circulation ensures the metabolism necessary for the life of the head. The isolated head lives on for hours and reacts to external stimuli.
Oh, have you guys never seen this one before? Yes. Supposedly, the Soviets cut a dog's head off and kept it alive.
The isolated head even reacts to light and to sound.
So as you can see, the Soviet Union had a long history of killing dogs for science and murdering dogs in space. But I call bullshit on this cutting a dog's head off and keeping it alive. I'm sorry, but it seems like some Soviet propaganda to me. Maybe I'm wrong. To this day, a lot of people seem to believe this is real. Who did all the weird experiments with film editing and psychological research? Oh, that's right. The Soviets. The film was shown to an audience of 1,000 US scientists in 1943 in the Congress of American-Soviet Friendship. I'm sure that they only have the most truthful and most beneficent of intentions for science and academic research, right? The audience considered that the film might move many supposed biological impossibilities into the realm of the possible. Some commenters have questioned the film's authenticity, given that none of the more dubious experiments are shown in any full-frame shots. According to some scientists who claim to have seen the experiments in the film, the severed dog head only survived for a few minutes when attached to an artificial heart, as opposed to the hours claimed in the film. Another source of skepticism are the dogs drained of blood and then brought back to life, as after 10 minutes of death they should have experienced serious brain damage. According to the Institute's records, the dogs only survived for a few days, not several years as the film claims. So I am skeptical, but I think the world just accepted, oh yeah, you know, like that's what the Soviets would do. They would cut a dog's head off for science. And of course this has never been replicated, because nobody but an insane Soviet scientist would think that up. But I want to backtrack for a moment because I have a theory. I have a couple theories, but let's go back a bit. I want to ask you in the chat pop quiz. So the Soviets beat the Americans to space in the space race. But who was the first country to actually throw a man-made object past the Kármán line into what is officially space? Who? I'll give you a moment. If you said Nazi Germany, then you were correct. Yes, technically, the Nazis were the first to space. It was the V2 rocket, which was the first rocket to pass the Kármán line, the first man-made object into space. Long before the Soviets, long before the Americans. Let's go back in time. It was 1957 when we last checked in with Sputnik. Let's go back about 10 years. It's the end of World War II. And German rocket scientists are throwing all they have at a secret program.
Vivid German films uncovered by Allied occupation men tell the story of the V-2 rocket through enemy eyes. In a last desperate attempt to escape defeat, German science threw everything it had into the perfection of V-2. Hurtling through the stratosphere at 3,000 miles an hour to fall on London, this was the peak of 15 years of German scientific research. In the early days, so many launchings were faulty that terrified laborers refused to work on the project. Some would spiral crazily up and then plummet down. One of many failures, it crashed on a German airfield, and the dwindling Luftwaffe suffered a self-inflicted blow. Second only to the atom bomb, V-2 was the war's deadliest weapon. It even killed the men who had spent their lives perfecting it. Observers look on from concreted pits, and this time they really get something to see as the V-2 plunges earthwards. The first V-2 fell on London in September 1944. Now they are a ghastly memory. But Antwerp, Liège, London, and Britain's East Coast towns will never forget their days of V-2 death from the skies.
So, who could have been so ingenious as to dream up such an insidious device? I wonder. Hello, Miss Daly. Welcome, and I see you've come at just the right time. Well, you'll see that I don't need to tell you about Operation Paperclip. You know about Operation Paperclip, yes? You know about Werner von Braun, yes? You know all about how all of a sudden after the war, all of these stolen Nazi rockets and stolen Nazi rocket scientists are suddenly showing up in America. And their scientific achievements are pushing forward America's hopes for space.
This camera, part of a flying laboratory, is recovered by Clyde Holliday of Johns Hopkins, who prepared it for its trip to the upper stratosphere. Rivaling the fantastic imagination of Jules Verne, the camera brought back a record of a flight into the heavens of a captured German V-2 rocket. At White Sands, New Mexico, the huge missile takes off. Air Force pictures show the rocket in flight, and the flying camera automatically takes over. The huge projectile drops the Earth behind at the tremendous speed of 4,000 feet per second. The rotation of the rocket causes the planet to spin before the lens, and the camera photographs the Earth 65 miles straight down. The horizon, 720 miles away, and the curvature of the Earth are astonishingly apparent in this still picture from the film. An observer in the rocket could have seen San Diego, Salt Lake City, Kansas City, and San Antonio. Approximately 1,600,000 square miles of the Earth's surface was revealed. The rocket reached the 65-mile height in 3 minutes. This giant engine of destruction, designed by Hitler to annihilate Allied nations, now serves the worthy cause of peacetime research.
And I'm sure that is the only purpose that all of this is going towards, right? Scientific research. We're past World War II. We're done with that. Nazis are a thing of the past. Who is this man who keeps aiming for the moon and hitting London? Who could have such noble aspirations for scientific research, right? That's what this is all about, right? We're in a period of post-war reconstruction. I don't know. We're only building rockets for science. We're only launching stolen Nazi rockets for science. Now, I have a question for you all. I have a question. Because you all know about Operation Paperclip. I don't need to go into great detail about how the US took Nazi rocket scientists and put them to use. I don't need to tell you about Werner von Braun. You know that. You're all smart people. I don't need to tell you about that, right? We don't need to spend any time rehashing old things about Operation Paperclip that you already know. But let me ask you something else. Let me ask you, if Werner von Braun and all the Nazi rocket scientists came over from Germany after the war through Operation Paperclip, who was the person who recruited Werner von Braun and said, "That's our boy, that's the man. That's the man with the knowledge that's gonna get America into space. That's our boy right there." Who was the man who saw something in old Werner von Braun and decided, "That's our boy"? Who? I bet you don't know. I'm sure it's nobody, right? That's why we don't remember him. That's why you know all about Werner von Braun and Operation Paperclip. But you probably don't know who recruited von Braun for the United States. You probably don't know, do you? The answers are coming in. Richard Biden, George Bush's father. Well, I'll let you think about it for a moment. I won't answer it right away because history's a funny thing that way. You remember Werner von Braun, but you don't know who recruited Werner von Braun, do you? And so, while we think about the answer to that question, I'm sure that there's nothing that I can tell you that you don't already know about Werner von Braun. However, there's something else. History's a funny thing. Sometimes it's not a politician or a scientist or a celebrity who's gonna give you the straight scoop on what's really happening. No. sometimes, when we reflect back on history, because we are purveyors of history, sometimes when we look back, the people who are right on the money are not the politicians, not the scientists, not the celebrities, not the mouthpieces for the media, but asshole satirists with unpopular opinions in their time. And so with that, I turn it over. Because we recruited Werner von Braun. And what does this have to do with the bomb?
Well, speaking of bombs, what is it that makes America the world's greatest nuclear power? And what is it that will make it possible for us to spend $20,000 million of our taxpayers' money to put some idiot on the moon? Well, it was the great, enormous superiority of American technology, of course, as provided by our great American scientists, such as Dr. Werner von Braun. Gather round while I sing you of Werner von Braun, a man whose allegiance is ruled by expedience. Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi schmazi, says Werner von Braun. Don't say that he's hypocritical, say rather that he's apolitical. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. Some have harsh words for this man of renown, but some think our attitude should be one of gratitude, like the widows and cripples in old London town, who owe their large pensions to Werner von Braun. You too may be a big hero once you've learned to count backwards to zero. In German or English, I know how to count down. And I'm learning Chinese, says Werner von Braun.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Why would Werner von Braun need to learn Chinese? And who recruited Werner von Braun? And what does this have to do with the bomb? Oh, perhaps the answers all come together. Let me answer. Who recruited Werner von Braun? What if I told you it was Shen Huishen, who came from China to become an associate professor at Caltech University, where he helps found the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, while attending secret seances and black magic rituals with Jack Parsons, Robert Oppenheimer, Frank Molina. Parties that were organized by Russian-born Jewish refugee chemist Sidney Weinbaum, who was a vocal Marxist, called Professional Unit 122 of the Pasadena Communist Party, that was under investigation by the FBI for passing rocket information to the Soviet Union. Chen, Parsons, and Molina became known at Caltech as the Suicide Squad, because of their dangerous experiments. He's recruited by the United States Department of Defense and the Department of War to serve in various positions, including as an expert consultant, where he's given security clearance and the rank of colonel. He's just given security clearance and the rank of colonel, and sent to Germany to recruit German scientists, including Werner von Braun. Shen's security clearance was revoked in 1950 under suspicions that he was a communist spy. 2 weeks later, he declares he intends to resign from Caltech and return to China, which is ruled by Mao Zedong's Communist Party. Shen is placed under house arrest, where he writes engineering cybernetics just for funsies. You didn't know any of this, did you? In 1955, after his travel ban is lifted, in a rumored exchange for 11 U.S. airmen held captive since the Korean War, Shen moves permanently to I can't guess where. Can you guess?
Let's say China. 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 You go over to China. 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 You take China. 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 I love them. China. 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 I have to have my China. China. China because China. China.
You gotta have your China. And how come nobody knows about this? You all know about Werner von Braun. But you didn't know he was recruited by somebody who was accused of being a communist spy, and it doesn't end there, friends. In 1955, his travel ban is lifted. He goes back to China in a rumored exchange for 11 U.S. airmen who were held captive since the Korean War, where there he rises through the ranks of the Communist Party and becomes director of the 5th Academy of the Ministry of National Defense, tasked with ballistic missile and nuclear weapons development, where he becomes known as the father of Chinese rocketry and the father of China's space program. He's hanging out with Chairman Mao, and guess what? He denounced demonstrators in Tiananmen Square as evil elements. He's writing articles claiming that science supports that Mao's Great Leap Forward was a success because of the grain yield. And he becomes one of the fathers of China's 2 bombs, 1 satellite program. 2 bombs, 1 satellite. 2 bombs, 1 satellite. A program to put an atom bomb and a hydrogen bomb onto an intercontinental ballistic missile in space. And do I need to tell you that he hands over all of his knowledge of technology and US rocket secrets, including knowledge that leads to China developing the bomb? And today, in China, Shen Wushen is considered a national hero, and students are told to swear to study hard so that they can become the next Shen Wushen. So study hard, children. Chairman Mao loves you. Become the next Shen Wushen. Move to the United States and steal all of their rocket science. Pretty crazy. That everybody knows about Werner von Braun, Operation Paperclip. But nobody talks about Shen Wushen. Nobody talks about the fact that the guy who recruited those guys for Operation Paperclip goes on to become a communist spy for the PRC and hands over all of the Nazi rocket secrets to Chairman Mao and becomes the father of Chinese space program. Nobody talks about this. Weird.
Weird. Weird.
Weird. So, what did we learn? What did we learn? Well, two things. Number one, first and foremost, what do we always say?
And don't trust China. China is asshole.
Did I need to tell you? Don't trust them. And number two, I'm getting a sneaking suspicion, a raging clue, that all of this scientific research and all of this drive to put a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth in this decade, I'm beginning to think that this isn't about science and putting men into space at all. I'm beginning to think you're using this to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles that can deliver nuclear payloads. But call me crazy, I don't know, because funny thing that history is like that. A funny thing that sometimes it's the assholes with unpopular opinions that just seem to see something that everyone else doesn't.
All right. A few weeks ago, the American press reported that China had exploded a nuclear bomb. Now, this was a great leap forward for China, of course, but it was an even greater leap forward for the American press because for the first time they called it China instead of Red China. For 18 years they've been hoping it would just go away. And for the first time they called it a bomb instead of a device. So, with China possessing the bomb, it makes us wonder, who's next? First we got the bomb, and that was good, 'cause we love peace and motherhood. Then Russia got the bomb, but that's okay, 'cause the balance of power's maintained that way. Who's next? France got the bomb, but don't you grieve, 'cause they're on our side, I believe. China got the bomb, but have no fears. They can't wipe us out for at least 5 years. Who's next? Then Indonesia claimed that they were going to get one any day. South Africa wants two, that's right. One for the black and one for the white. Who's next? Egypt's gonna get one too, just to use on you know who. So Israel Israel's getting tense, wants one in self-defense. The Lord is our shepherd, says the psalm, but just in case, we better get a bomb. Who's the next? Luxembourg is next to go, and who knows, maybe Monaco. We'll try to stay serene and calm when Alabama gets the bomb. Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Who's next?
Why Alabama? Because Alabama had whole towns filled with Nazi rocket scientists. Whole towns. Tom Lear, everyone. Sometimes it's an asshole with an unpopular opinion. So, Werner von Braun. Now, I have a theory. I have a theory, and it goes something like this. In the early days of the space race, before the Soviets were killing dogs in space, von Braun and his German Nazi rocket scientists were already in the US, and I think the conversation went something like this. Mein Führer, the American public would never support us shooting dogs into space. They would consider it to be cruel and inhumane. But if we were to strap monkeys to the rockets instead, then not only would the monkey's biology more closely resemble that of the human being, but also, when the rocket explodes, the monkey will emit a hilarious monkey scream, which will inject a certain amount of comedy into the inherent tragedy of the situation. I think you will find that the American people would support such a monkey rocket research program. And they were right. By God, they were right. Because before the Soviets were killing dogs in space, Nazi rocket scientists were shooting monkeys to the edge of space, and that's how we get to the stars of our show. It's hard not to talk in that voice now. But first, before we get to the monkeys, as I'm sure you are already aware, von Braun was deeply involved with Walt Disney and sold the American public on monkey rocket programs with the help of Walt Disney. Well, let's see. What was the American public sold on for this monkey rocket research program? What were we promised? What were we promised? What would all of this monkey rocket research program lead to?
This advanced base, or space station, will be headquarters for the final ascent to the moon. Our space satellite will have the shape of a wheel, measuring 200 feet across. This outside rim will contain living and working quarters for a crew of 50 men. Just below the radio and radar antenna is the atomic reactor. Its heat will be used to drive a turbo generator, which supplies the station with electricity. Access to the station will be through an airlock in the hub. The 3 large spokes are elevator shafts.
That's a bike wheel.
And the small pipes are used as condensers for the turbo generator of the air conditioning plant.
That's a bike wheel.
The entire wheel will slowly rotate at 3 revolutions per minute. The resulting centrifugal force will produce an artificial gravity for the men in the rim.
That sounds awesome.
Notice that the floors are placed so that the men stand with their heads towards the hub.
No, that's awesome, but why
the
don't we
wheel
have
is divided into 9 sections. The first section is headquarters and communications. The next section will be for Earth weather observation and prediction. Military reconnaissance experts, aided by powerful optical and radar telescopes, will observe every point on the globe as the space station makes its complete trip around the Earth every 2 hours. Next is the emergency hospital section. And then the astronomy division, where men will keep an eye on the rocket ship as it makes its trip around the moon. The rest of the space station will house calculating machines, maintenance facilities, air conditioning equipment, living quarters, and even a botanical and zoological laboratory.
No, that sounds awesome.
This entire
but why
space
don't we have
station
that?
will have to be prefabricated and tested on the ground.
I bet.
After dismantling,
So how are you gonna
it will be
build that?
transported in pieces up to the orbit. Construction of the space wheel now begins. The sides of the cargo nose are mechanically separated.
Whoa, that looks awesome.
Built-in tanks of compressed air inflate this large plastic
That
inner
looks
section of the hub.
questionable.
Thin metal plates are immediately clamped on the outside to protect it from meteors.
Now there's
The
droids.
first workday in space draws to a close.
Now
Every
we're just gonna
24
build
hours,
stuff with
another
droids.
cargo rocket will arrive in the orbit.
Every day
When
we're
the
gonna
airlock
launch
is attached,
rockets,
the pressurized hub
droids.
section can be used as temporary quarters for eating and sleeping. Each succeeding load is carefully scheduled so that the parts of the station can be assembled in correct order.
That looks awesome. Why
Nylon
don't we have
ropes
that?
prevent the parts from slowly drifting away. Next, the atomic reactor is installed. The wheel begins to take shape now as the 3 main spokes and rim sections are joined together.
But why don't we have that? Why don't we have droids?
Condenser pipes are
building
fitted
bike
next
wheels in
so that the
space?
atomic reactor may be put in operation.
You
Even though there's
promised-
no apparent motion, everything in the orbit is hurtling around the Earth at 16,000 miles per hour.
promised us bike
The
wheels
shell
in
of the
space.
station is completed. Now comes the delicate task of installing instruments and the multitude of equipment inside. Finally, 2 small rocket motors on the rim, lasting for a few seconds, will set the wheel in permanent motion to
Wow.
revolve 3 times a minute.
Just trust me, bro. It works. Wow. How come we don't have that though, Werner? That's weird. Hey, Werner. I'm speaking to you from the future. Why don't we have that? Weird. I feel like we got sold on something that was just an implausibility, but I digress. This is about science. And this is about pioneers in space. So, we've reached that point in the show, the stars of our show, everyone, the space monkeys. Let me introduce you to the first space monkey, Albert!
First films of one of the most amazing rocket experiments to date. At White Sands, New Mexico, Air Force scientists prepare to launch a rocket into upper space manned by 2 white mice and Albert the monkey. The purpose, to study their reactions to travel at altitudes and speeds never attained by human beings. Every precaution is taken to assure their return, safe and sound, from their spectacular journey into space to the point where the force of gravity measures exactly 0. The final step, inserting a tube of oxygen. Where this rocket is headed, there's no air outside. 0 hour approaches. They're off at 2,000 miles an hour.
Special equipment broadcasts Albert's physical reactions back to the test station. Defense Department films show the rocket 38 miles up. Inside the missile, an automatic camera shows the mice running on the sides of their cage. There's no gravity here, no up or down. Notice the floating ball. A parachute opens to ease the rocket and its precious cargo to a gentle landing. Anxious scientists rush to the scene and discover the animal crew has weathered the flight safely. It's Albert's moment of triumph. He's the world's first space cadet.
Oh my God, see, Albert, he made it. He did it. Yay, Albert, right? No, niet. Because, hate to tell you this, Corey, you sent me down a rabbit hole, sir. Guess what? The American military was playing their own monkey games. The Soviets weren't the only ones lying about shooting a dog into space, and yet dog is fine. It wasn't just the Soviets. Or let me introduce you to Albert the monkey. Or should I say, one of the Alberts. Look at how stoic and brave he looks. Now I hate to break this to you, but America done lied. Because there wasn't just one Albert. No, there was at least 6 Alberts. There were 6 Alberts. Much like the lineage of a king, Albert lent his name, like the lineage of a European king or a D&D character that just got killed off in their first adventure. I'm naming him Duncan. Well, Duncan, you just died in the goblin attack. Well, I'll re-roll my character and name him Duncan the Second. And that's basically what the US government did with Albert. So, let me tell you the truth about what happened to Albert the Space Monkey. Are you ready? So, Albert won. Albert the First. Albert the First was the first primate launched into high subspace, although not technically a space flight. Albert the First, a rhesus macaque, who on June 18th, 1948, rode over 39 miles into Earth's atmosphere on a V-2 rocket, launched from White Sands Proving Ground, New Mexico. Albert I died of suffocation during the flight, and may actually have died in the cramped space capsule before the launch. So, in the first attempt, the US just may have shot a dead monkey to the edge of space. And that was Albert the First. Now, Albert the Second fared a little better. On June 14th, 1949, Albert II reached an altitude of 83 miles on his suborbital V-2 flight. He survived. To become the first primate and the first mammal in space. He beat Laika. The Reds don't want to talk about that, and they don't let you know about that, but Albert II beat the dog that they murdered to space. And upon re-entry, a parachute failure caused his capsule to strike the ground at high speed. And Albert's respiratory and cardiological data were recorded up to the moment of impact, meaning that Albert II, Albert II, died on impact because of parachute failure. But I'm sure that third time's the charm. Albert III will do much better. On September 16th, 1949, the V-2 rocket carrying Albert III, a crab-eating macaque, exploded at 35,000 feet. So, there goes Albert III. On December 8th, Albert IV became the second mammal to reach space. And he was the last astro monkey on a V-2 rocket. He survived re-entry. However, due to parachute failure, Albert IV died on impact. Now, it's at this point, the US realizes we are blowing up way too many of these V2s and way too many of these monkeys. We're running out of both. And they switched to the Aerobee rocket. Now, if that looks like a skinny little rocket to you, no problem. We'll just put Albert in a tube, stuff him in the rocket, and shoot him into the stratosphere. So, on April 18th, 1951, Albert V takes off aboard an Aerobee rocket. He survives! He survived! And he died on impact due to parachute failure. If you haven't noticed, this seems to be a trend. So, that brings us to the final Albert, Albert VI. These engineers said, look, we're losing too many rockets, too many monkeys. So they decided that on September 20th, 1951, Albert VI, they just stuff 11 mice crewmates in there with him. And together, they reached an altitude, they reached 45 miles. I think that's altitude. And guess what? Guess what? Albert VI survived re-entry, so he made it to space, survived re-entry. Wait for it. He had a successful parachute deployment, and he became the first primate to reach space and survive the return trip. Albert the Sixth, however, Albert VI went to space, had successful parachute deployment, became the first primate to reach space, survived the return trip. However, he landed horribly off course in the middle of the New Mexico desert. And Albert VI died of heat stroke while waiting for his retrieval. But on the bright side, only 2 mice died, so there you go. It wasn't just the Soviets who were spinning some propaganda about their space program and the survivability of the animals they shot up on intercontinental ballistic missiles, I mean rockets. Nevertheless, we shan't forget you, Albert, and all of the Alberts. We shan't forget thee. We shan't forget thee and their contributions to spaceflight.
Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies chase those dark clouds far away, and I will just say hello to the folks that you know. Tell them you won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as I saw you go, you were singing this song. Again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
F for Albert, all of the Alberts. Oh, but Albert wasn't the only space monkey. We haven't even gotten to Ham yet. But Albert paved the way. Rest in peace, all of the Alberts. There's more monkeys to come, because... Let me cue this up. Our next space monkey on December 13th, 1958, Gordo, also called Old Reliable, a squirrel monkey. There's Gordo. Gordo, a squirrel monkey, survived being launched aboard a Jupiter AM-13 by the U.S. Army. Science. Solve science. By the way, Eisenhower and McNamara said that Jupiter was a piece of shit. And after flying for over 1,500 miles and reaching a height of 310 miles, before returning to Earth, Gordo landed in the South Atlantic and was killed due to mechanical failure of the parachute recovery system of the rocket nose cone. This is seeming to be a real reoccurring problem. Rest in peace, Gordo. On May 28, 1959, aboard Jupiter AM-18, Miss Able, a rhesus macaque, and Miss Baker, a squirrel monkey from Peru, flew a successful mission. Able and Baker, let's learn. There's Miss Baker. There she is. Aboard that piece of shit Jupiter rocket. I think we should learn more about Able and Baker.
At Cape Canaveral, two tiny astronauts, monkeys Able and Baker, are readied for the first flight into outer space and safe return of Earth flight. Dressed in protective spacesuits and wired so that readings on their physiological reactions can be transmitted to the ground, the rhesus monkey and the much smaller squirrel monkey are secured in separate capsules in the nose cone of a Jupiter missile. Prime purpose of the flight was to test the nose cone re-entry. In a sense, the monkeys were hitchhikers. 300 miles out into space they travel. 15 minutes and 1,700 ground miles later, the capsule is fished from the waters of the Caribbean, where it re-entered the atmosphere. The recovery, shown in these Defense Department films, is made by the Navy tug Kiowa. Aboard of the ship, a team of biomedical specialists waits to examine the nose cone's passengers. The cone itself is in good shape after the fiery plunge through space. Able and Baker are unswathed from their protective garb, and they prove sturdy little explorers indeed. Physically unharmed and in jolly good spirits, the first creatures from outer space in all history.
I think you're ignoring the achievements of Albert.
Baker, the tiny squirrel monkey, is more interested in food than fame. And Able, the rhesus, is downright blasé about the whole thing. A little later, the space monkeys meet the press at the headquarters of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration in Washington. They brought back the best evidence yet that humans can function and survive in outer space. Pathfinders for the spacemen of tomorrow.
So how did they fare? Well, after traveling in excess of 16,000 kilometers an hour and withstanding 38 G's of force, Able died June 1st, 1959, while undergoing surgery to remove an infected medical electrode from a reaction to the anesthesia. And you can now observe his little stuffed monkey corpse in the Air and Space Museum in his little monkey chair that he rode into space on. But what about Miss Baker? How did Miss Baker fare? Here's Miss Baker in her biopack. How did Miss Baker fare? Miss Baker went on to receive a Certificate of Merit for Distinguished Service from the ASPCA. And would you also guess that Miss Baker went on to become the oldest living squirrel monkey? Here she is celebrating her birthday at a Showbiz Pizza or a Chuck E. Cheese. Weird. Weird.
Weird. Weird.
Oldest living squirrel monkey. Well, we salute you, Miss Baker and Abel. Who's our next monkey? Let's talk about rockets for a minute, though. You see this? That's called a Little Joe. We're gonna learn a little bit about rockets tonight. Rockets. And we struck monkeys to the rockets. The Little Joes were a specialized rocket that they used to test the capsule in the Mercury program, which we will get to. And so, our next space monkey, Sam the Space Monkey. Sam the Space Monkey on December 4th, 1959, in Wallops Island, Virginia, Sam, a rhesus macaque, flew the Little Joe 2 in the Mercury program to 53 miles high. We salute you, Sam. Apparently he came back okay. This is all part of testing the Mercury capsule, which we will get to. How did America put a man in space? We're gonna get there, guys. It involves monkeys. I have a dastardly, astounding plan to get to space, and it involves intercontinental ballistic missiles and monkeys, but you're going to have to hang in there with me. So, next up, on January 21st, 1960, Miss Sam, also a rhesus macaque, followed on Little Joe 1B, although her flight was only 8 miles in to test emergency procedures. So that's Miss Sam being loaded into her capsule. This is all to test Project Mercury. What is Project Mercury? Well, you know these intercontinental ballistic missiles, I mean rockets that we keep talking about? Well, what if we were to strap a monkey onto the rocket? If the monkey survives, then it is only logical that a human being will also survive. And if we can put a human being on top of a rocket into space, we can put an intercontinental ballistic nuclear weapon into space. I mean, I digress. But history's a funny thing. I want to explore timelines for it. It was only a month after the SAMs were shot to the edge of space on Little Joe rockets for the Mercury program that a former general and outgoing president had this to say about the state of his country. And what has become an old American adage. Beware the military-industrial complex.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
We must guard against unwarranted acquisition of power by the military-industrial complex. But I'm sure this has nothing to do with what we're about to talk about, right? Because we're talking about space and science. So, let's learn more about the rocket that will get Americans into space.
This is a model of the U.S. Army's Redstone guided missile, the largest American ballistic missile to have reached the test firing stage.
This missile was developed at the Redstone Arsenal.
Arsenal?
And as Department of Defense releases have already said, becomes the basis
for the development of the much longer range missile.
Missile? Arsenal?
This is a model of the U.S. Army's Redstone guided missile, the largest American ballistic missile to have reached the test firing stage.
That dead stare. You want to see something really funny, though? History's funny. History's a funny thing. Let's look back on history.
This is a sound test. Goody, goody, goody. Now, Santos, they are going to expand next year. They're getting more development equipment, some more printers, and some sound equipment. So, I look forward for big things for them.
Big things. I hope you get that sound equipment because your microphone sounds like shit. Funny. History's funny. But you told me we were going to space. But they are talking about intercontinental ballistic missiles. I need to know more about the Redstone rocket.
The Redstone is the Army's 200-mile surface-to-surface ballistic missile developed entirely by the scientific and technical team of the Army Ballistic Missile Agency. The Redstone is completely invulnerable to any external effort to upset or to interfere with its highly developed, precise guidance system. It travels at supersonic velocity. It will follow a pre-planned trajectory carrying a nuclear warhead. The Redstone has undergone a long series
a nuclear warhead? You mean a man into space, right?
Successful tests. These vigorous tests have established its right to join the Army's arsenal of weapons.
Weapons? By weapons, by weapons you mean scientific research, right?
Missile Group Redstone was trained at ABMA prior to its assignment to an overseas command. Redstone is to date the nation's longest range operational ballistic missile. This accomplishment demonstrates the unique abilities of Dr. Werner von Braun's team of rocket scientists and ABMA's highly qualified personnel. A solid propellant version of the Redstone, named the Pershing, is under development at the Missile Agency.
Oh, so it is an intercontinental ballistic missile which will get us to space. Okay, fair enough. But we can't just shoot people into space, which brings us to what is arguably the star of this program. However, I have arguments about that, but nevertheless, let's talk about Ham. It's aboard the Redstone rocket that Ham, as part of the Mercury program, rockets into space. Ham. Ham the Astro Chimp. One might argue the face of pre-human space travel in America. In America, at least. Let's learn more about Ham. It's not just for breakfast anymore.
The saga of Ham, trailblazer in space, is the story of a 3-year-old chimpanzee serving the cause of science. The little chimp has been carefully selected, thoroughly examined, and patiently tutored to help mankind discover whether living creatures can survive travel in space. Under the watchful eyes of Air Force scientists, Ham is taught to perform a series of in-flight experiments. By hitting certain levers when lights flash on, the chimp earns a banana-flavored pellet as a reward. After each test and each capsule, there is a sip of water to top off the tasty prize. Ham is but one of several chimps to undergo pre-flight training. Each is...
I'm sorry, I was muted, but I must stop the show. For intrepid viewers, do you see this monkey? This monkey on the far left. That monkey's touching himself. Right? There's no doubt about it. That monkey's jerking it. He knows what's happening. He's doing it for the camera. Now, let's stop the show for a moment in soapbox. Ham is not who you think he is. Ham was an Uncle Tom of monkeys. There was another monkey. There was another monkey. That's not Ham grabbing his monkey dick there in defiance. No. Ham played the game. Ham wanted to go to space. Ham wanted the celebrity and all the things that came with it. But there was another monkey. Oh yes. There was another. A monkey who would not take this shit. So, as we learn about Ham, I'll try not to taint the waters anymore with my Ham revisionism. But I want you to know that Ham's not the only chimp out there. There was another.
Pre-flight training. Each is outfitted from head to toe with his own spacesuit as he awaits the big day. A special chamber has been built for the little passenger, similar in detail to the capsule that will eventually transport man into space. 7 miles of wiring and 10,000 parts are shaped and stacked layer on layer in an area smaller than a telephone booth. At last, early in 1961, the pre-flight preparations are complete. At Cape Canaveral, the blue-gray space capsule is ready to take its place atop the launching rocket. The minutes are like hours as the countdown is started and follows its methodical, measured pace. Only the star of the space drama seems unconcerned at the mounting tension around him as he arrives in typical high spirits for his final checkup.
Monkeys smile when they're disturbed.
Weighing 37.5 pounds, Ham will be the largest animal yet to rocket into space and the first creature trained to respond intelligently to signals from Earth. His little chamber is to be hermetically sealed. Lying on a form-fitting couch, the frisky space traveler has been strapped in. His arms are free, and he has a plastic window to look out. The firing is a success. But what of little Ham? Has he survived the tremendous shock of takeoff? Is he alive?
Little Ham?
Yes. Remarkable motion pictures made in flight show Ham, bottom screen, playing the game of levers and lights just as he has been trained to do. Here in animation, capsule and rocket separate 2.5 minutes after launch. Ham is weightless in a world of zero gravity and will be for 5 full minutes. He appears not to be affected at all as he carries out his assigned tasks. Now the capsule's tiny control rockets turn it down toward Earth after reaching a height of 155 miles. 18 minutes after launching, the space capsule with Ham inside is bobbing in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, 420 miles from Cape Canaveral. The question on everyone's mind is, how did he take it? And implied in that question is still another. How in the future will man take it? And so, anxiously, impatiently, hopefully, technicians and medical personnel work feverishly to free the amazing creature who has just completed this giant leap into space. They can see him now.
Space.
But still, the plastic cover of the chamber must be removed. Ham has done it. He is safe and well, a hero of space, happy to be back among friends. A completely contented chimp, he has moved man closer than ever before to his age-old dream of traveling the heavens. Shaking hands all around, he is true to his nickname Ham, a happy show-off. A story that began on desert sands ends on distant seas. Ham the chimp has journeyed fast and far on Earth and in space, showing the way for man to follow, earning the title of Trailblazer in space.
Because if you can put a monkey into space, you can put a man into space. And if you can put a man into space, then you can put a ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead in space. I'm sorry, mein Führer. I mean, Mr. President. I mean, Ham was a hero. And this is the capsule he flew in. Dear God. I can imagine flying in that as a monkey, but as a human. But nevertheless, there it is. That's the actual capsule that Ham made his historic flight in. Ham the Astro Chimp. Take that, Soviet Union. You can't even decide what the dog you killed in space looked like. Well, we shot a chimp into space and brought him back alive. So nana nana bobo, stick your head in doo-doo, except, as I said before, I'm a little bit of a Ham revisionist here because I don't think that Ham deserves all of the credit. Fun fact about Ham. Officially, Ham was known as number 65 before his flight and only renamed Ham upon his successful return to Earth. Huh. Interesting. This was reportedly because officials did not want the bad press that would come from the death of a named chimpanzee if the mission was a failure. Check this out. According to his handlers, number 65 had been known as Chop Chop Chang. Chop Chop Chang. I don't trust you, Ham. Chop, aka Chop Chop Chang. I see what happened last time we gave our rocket secrets to a Chinaman.
Don't trust China. China is asshole.
I don't trust you, Ham. Did anybody investigate whether or not Ham was a spy? Ching chong bing bong. Ham, I don't trust you. During his pre-flight training, Ham was taught to push a lever within 5 seconds of seeing a flashing blue light. Failure to do so resulted in an application of a light. Hold on, let me read this in the right voice. Failure to do so resulted in the application of a light electric shock to the soles of the feet. While a correct response and a banana pellet. What an ingenious plan. And what a propaganda victory for the American side of this space race, am I right? The Soviets can't even decide what the dog they killed looked like. Meanwhile, we've had a chimp in space!
Meet the chimp who made history. His name's Ham, and his epic journey began at Cape Canaveral in Florida. Months of training had prepared him not only to feel at ease in his space capsule, but also to operate a series of buttons to control his own comfort and to relay information back to base. A Redstone rocket was used to carry him out of the Earth's atmosphere. And so the first stage begins. We might call it Ham and Exit. The best laid plans of mice, men, and monkeys often go astray, and in this case the boosters carried the rocket further than they should. Here in diagram, the capsule separates. It took Ham 1,000 miles an hour faster than anticipated, rocketing him 155 miles up, paving the way for humans who will someday follow. Down the space range he drifted, parachuting 130 miles beyond the scheduled landing zone. Consequently, he was in the Atlantic longer than expected. Rescue vessels rushed to the scene while a helicopter retrieved Ham's capsule, leaking slightly after impact. Our intrepid hero had done everything he should, performing his task perfectly. The question everyone now asked in these exciting moments was how had he survived it? First reports were soon confirmed by the doctors. The Astro Chimp seemed none the worse, except for a bruise on his nose. He just said, "Howdy, man. Like I said, man, this space travel sure sends you."
I can't tell if that's racist or not. I don't know. Howdy, ma'am. This space travel sure sends you. Said the monkey. So where's Ham now? Oh. Uh-oh. There's Ham now. Update. There's Ham. But, as I said before, I have some controversial opinions about Ham. Let me explain. Ham here because this is Monkey History Month. And I want to celebrate the achievements of monkeys in science. What intercontinental ballistic missile carrying nuclear warheads? I mean, let me explain. Ham was not the only chimp in the space program. He's just the one you know about because, controversial opinion, Ham's a showboater. Ham's an Uncle Tom of the space chimp community. Ham wore his little diaper and smiled for the cameras. He did what he was told. and ignored the suffering of all of the monkeys, all of the Alberts that came before him to showboat for the cameras. Why? Why conspiracy theory? Conspiracy theory time. I think he did it for fame. He did it so that he could become the cover of Life magazine. That's right. Ham was not innocent in this. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Just wanted the fame, wanted the glory. There's another monkey we need to talk about, remember? Remember that pin that I told you to put in that monkey boner earlier? By the way, I hope you're enjoying this show. Brought to you by viewers like you. buymeacoffee.com/mooseheaven. Help us send a monkey to space. I want to talk about my favorite monkey in the space program. I want to talk about the other chimp. I want to talk about Enos. I want to talk about Enos. While Ham is out showboating, being a prima donna, Ham pandered. Ham pandered. You know who didn't pander? Enos. I want to turn you guys on to Enos. Starving Autist knows because Enos had a nickname. That's right. You see those little straps around his monkey arms? There's two reasons that those are there. And they have to do with his little nickname. What was Enos's nickname? Enos the penis. Enos the penis. That's right. Our monkey friend here had a little nickname, Enos the penis, and there's two reasons that he had that name. Two. One. Number one. It is said that he achieved that nickname of Enos the penis because he was an asshole. He apparently bit his trainers. He would take a shit in the simulators. Overall, Enos was a jerk. And therefore, Enos the penis. But there's a second reason that he achieved that nickname. Now, everybody in the historical record, now, here's something about this program, this Moose Heaven thing that I put on. When it comes to a spectrum of telling a story versus giving you the empirical first-hand account data, I tend to err on the side of the primary source, as opposed to it's a good story. However, in this case, I'm going to disagree with all of the historians on this one. I don't agree with you. I'm sorry. I think you're spreading some monkey hagiography here. Look up that word if you don't know what that means. It means historical revisionism about a saint that was written after their death. And I think that they have canonized Enos into the space canon of monkey saints. And they have forgotten, they've forgotten the real history. They've erased the history. The second reason that Enos received his nickname of Enos the Penis, which is that Enos liked to jerk off. He apparently loved jerking off. And he would jerk off in the simulators, and he would jerk off in his free time, and he would jerk off in defiance of the trainers, and he would bite them and fling his monkey poo at them. And that's why in every picture of Enos, he's got his little monkey straps around his little monkey arms. Because if you need evidence, that I think that there's some factual evidence here in every picture of Enos. He's touching his wiener. He's touching his little chimp wiener. Here's Enos on the left, ham looking mortified. Enos, you're ruining it for us. We're trying to Uncle Tom for the cameras here. This is for monkey publicity. You can, like, this one picture says it all, folks. Enos the penis, jerking off, flinging his poop in defiance, I think is the real hero here. Now, you're asking, okay, but they wouldn't be crazy enough to send this masturbating, shit-flinging monkey into space, would they? No, of course they did. Of course they did. Here's Enos getting ready for his trip into space with his handler gently holding his little monkey hands to prevent him, I'm sure, from jerking off. And I gotta give it to Enos. Ham rode aboard the Redstone rocket. We've talked all about the Redstone. But Enos rode on his trip. He rode the Atlas rocket. Look at that beautiful piece of Cold War technology there. That's Enos right up there in that capsule. That's the real picture of him launching off. So, the natural question, how did Enos fare in space? You're asking? Funny enough, I have the answer.
Takes a giant step as scientists and technicians prepare to orbit Enos, a 5-year-old chimpanzee, around the Earth. This is the preliminary, all-important step in space research that the U.S. insists on being successful before a man makes an orbital flight. Part of a highly trained team of chimps, Enos has been taught to perform certain tasks aboard the capsule when lights flash. His reward, a banana-flavored tidbit. The flight is delayed almost until the deadline. But now the countdown approaches 0 and blast off. History in the making. The flight is a success, though the trip is held to 2 circuits of the Earth. The chimp's cabin began to heat up, a condition an astronaut could have corrected. So control officers decided to bring him down before he completed his 3rd trip. He landed in the sea south of Bermuda and is brought to the islands for quick medical checks before he is taken back to Cape Canaveral for a thorough examination. Scientists are elated at the condition of both chimp and capsule.
They came through the test in a manner that brings a manned flight closer to reality for the U.S. space team. At Kindley Air Force Base Hospital, Enos appears sound, if not happy, to examining doctors. He performed his task well, not missing a trick in the complex series of work assignments. Next in orbit, Lieutenant Colonel John H. Glenn.
That's right. Enos made it back. And that's the capsule that he went to space in. Now I want to believe, usually, I'm a skeptical individual and I like to rest my interpretation of reality on things that I can prove with documents and facts and so forth. However, in this case, I want to believe that in that little window aboard that Mercury capsule, Enos the penis, the Astro Chimp, soared into the stratosphere beyond the Kármán line and became the first monkey to self-pleasure himself in space. As he looked out from his little window at the spinning globe below and defiantly blasting shit in that capsule all the way. I'm sure that they needed to scrub it clean after they fished it out of the Atlantic Ocean. And for that, hooray, Enos. We salute you. So what really happened? Enos was selected for his Project Mercury flight only 3 days before its launch. Enos flew into space aboard Mercury Atlas V on November 29th, 1961. He completed his first orbit in 1 hour and 28.5 minutes. Enos was scheduled to complete 3 orbits, but the mission was aborted after 2 due to 2 issues: capsule overheating and malfunctioning avoidance conditioning test, subjecting the primate to 76 electrical shocks. Shock the monkey. The chimpanzee, about 5 years old, behaved like a true hero despite the malfunctions of the electric system. He conscientiously performed all of the tasks he had learned during the entire flight. Over 3 hours, Enos demonstrated that he was careful to successfully complete his mission and that he perfectly understood what was expected of him. Eventually, Enos's flight ended and he came back to Earth. His capsule did not land where NASA anticipated, so he was stuck. He was stuck in the capsule for 3 hours and 20 minutes. By the time USS Storm's crew extracted him, the subject had broken through the protective belly panel and had removed or damaged most of the physiological sensors, and a NASA report records he had also forcibly removed the urinary catheter while the balloon was still inflated. A little less than a year later, Enos died of dysentery. We know his body was inspected, but the location of his remains is unknown. Well, we here at Moose Heaven shan't forget you, Enos the penis. Ham might have grabbed all of your thunder, but I want to believe. I want to believe in masturbating monkeys in space. And for that, I salute you, Enos. Because monkeys don't say fuck you. They can't give the middle finger. Do you know what they do in defiance, in revolt, in rebellion? They jerk off in space. And for that, we salute you, Enos. Because you paved the way for manned spaceflight, and if you couldn't put a monkey into space, then you can put a man into space, and you can put a man into space, and you can put a thermonuclear warhead into space. After Ham and Enos, Goliath, a squirrel monkey, died in an explosion of his Atlas rocket on November 10th, 1961, and a rhesus macaque named Scatback, a monkey named Scatback, flew a suborbital flight on December 20th, 1961, but was lost at sea during his landing. And there ended the golden age of monkey spaceflight. But it paved the way for the golden age of human spaceflight. For NASA introduced the Mercury 7 astronauts, 7 test pilots, seven men, 7 brave, some might say idiotic men, who had strapped themselves to the rocket that the monkey had already perfected and launched themselves into space. What could go wrong? They shot monkeys up, they brought monkeys back. What could go wrong with humans? They must have perfected it by now, right? Let's talk. Oh, Lost Chaos, trust me. Symbols everywhere. Hang on, put a pin in that, buddy. So this goofy-faced guy, of the 7 astronauts, of the 7 test pilots chosen in the Mercury program, Alan Shepard is the first to actually fly into space. It might seem like a consequential thing now in 2024, but you're looking at the face of the first American test pilot to fly into space. But my friends, you know that on Moose Heaven, I'm not going to just leave it at that. You know that I'm going to dive deeper into the story, and thank you, my friend Corey, for putting me onto this weird rabbit hole of early golden age. Because one might argue the Mercury program was the golden age of America's space program. I digress. But thank you nonetheless, Mr. Flockstra, for putting me down this rabbit hole. On April 12th, 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first person in space and the first to orbit Earth. It was another body blow to American pride. Wow. That's a very subjective language for Wikipedia. When Shepard heard the news, he slammed his fist down on the table so hard a NASA public relations officer feared he might have broken his hand. On May 5th, 1961, Alan Shepard piloted the Mercury Redstone 3 mission and became the first person and the first American to travel into space. The second person. Because the Soviets did it first. Swearsy realsy. There's always, again, I'm not one of those kooky flat earth people, but there is a certain amount of, nah, you gotta trust me, bro, in the whole space program. Which is why I kind of like the Mercury program the most, because it is wild. It's the golden age as far as I'm concerned. So, let's talk about this golden age. On May 5th, 1961, Alan Shepard piloted Mercury Redstone 3 and became the second person and the first American to travel into space. He named his spacecraft Mercury. Spacecraft 7 Freedom 7. There's also weird symbology with NASA. They have weird ritualistic things. They named all of the first Mercury program things 7. It's a whole other topic. Deep dive, but nonetheless, he awoke at 1:10 and had his breakfast consisting of orange juice, a filet mignon wrapped in bacon, and scrambled eggs with his backup, John Glenn. We'll talk about him later. And flight surgeon William K. Douglas. He was helped into his spacesuit by suit technician Joseph W. Schmidt and boarded the transfer van at 3:55. He ascended the gantry at 5:15 and entered the spacecraft 5 minutes later, and was expected that liftoff would occur in another 2 hours and 5 minutes. So Shepard's suit did not have any provision for elimination of bodily wastes. But after being strapped into the capsule seat, launch delays kept him in a suit for over 4 hours, and Shepard's endurance gave out before the launch, and he was forced to empty his bladder into the suit. Medical sensors attached to it to track the astronaut's condition in the flight were turned off to avoid shorting them out, and the urine pooled in the small of his back where it was absorbed into his undergarments. After Shepard's flight, the spacesuit was modified, and by the time of Gus Grissom's Mercury Redstone 4 flight, a liquid waste collection feature had been built into the suit. Unlike Gagarin, whose flight was strictly automatic, Shepard had some control of Freedom 7 spacecraft altitude in particular. Shepard's launch had been seen on live television by millions, and it was launched atop a Redstone rocket, totally not an intercontinental ballistic missile developed by Ufana von Braun. According to Gene Kranz in his 2000 book Failure is Not an Option, quote, when reporters asked Shepard what he thought about as he sat atop the Redstone rocket waiting for liftoff, he replied, "The fact that every part of this ship was built by its lowest bidder." So, a piece of history for you all as we watch the first American shoot off into space with piss in his pants aboard the rocket built by the lowest bidder. Historic. Historic.
Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. All right, liftoff, and the clock is started. Yes, sir. Reading you loud and clear. This is Freedom 7. The fuel is go. 1.2 G. Cabin at 14 psi. Oxygen is go. Freedom 7 is still go. How's it looking good?
And so, it was with piss in his pants and hopes in his dreams that Alan Shepard rocketed off into space and became the first American into space aboard a Redstone rocket. Fun fact: Alan Shepard also goes on to become the astronaut who plays golf on, quote-unquote, the moon.
Houston, while you're looking that up, you might recognize what I have in my hand as the handle for the contingency sample return. It just so happens to have a genuine 6-iron on the bottom of it. In my left hand, I have a little white pellet that's familiar to millions of Americans. Drop it down. Unfortunately, the scissors so stiff I can't do it with 2 hands, but I'm going to try a little sand trap shot here. They got more dirt than ball this time. Got more dirt than ball. Here we go again. That looked like a slice to me, Al. There we go. Breathe the die. One more. Miles and miles and miles.
Weird.
Alan Shepard. First American man, into space with piss in his pants. Knocking golf balls on the moon. Who's insane enough to follow that? This guy. Virgil Gus Grissom. He looks like a clean-cut straight shooter. I'm excited to see where his career goes. Because he's the next Mercury astronaut to blast off past the Kármán line into space aboard Liberty Bell 7. However, Houston, we have a problem. Because even though Gus Grissom makes it to space, something goes catastrophically wrong.
The astronaut, Virgil Grissom, is out of the capsule, swimming in the water. The capsule itself is apparently sinking lower into the water, and there is fear that it might sink completely below the surface of the water. 4 helicopters are all hovering very close to the astronaut and the capsule out there. They're making an attempt to get a cable to Virgil Grissom, who is protected. Of course, he will float. There's no problem about that, and they'll get him out. The concern at the time is with the capsule itself. And it looks like Grissom is coming up now. It looks like Grissom is coming up out of the water.
And this is John Powers in the Mercury Control Center. I'll repeat what happened downrange in the pickup area. We know that the helicopter attempted the pickup of the Mercury spacecraft. We know that Virgil Gus Grissom got aboard the helicopter. We also know that some kind of malfunction occurred
The spacecraft was dropped in the ocean and sank. Before the unfortunate incident in which the helicopter lost the capsule and dropped it back into the ocean, we had heard from Batchelder aboard the Randolph that the capsule seemed to be sinking, so apparently there was a leakage in the capsule which caused the original difficulty. It might be recalled that this was the principal malfunction in the flight of the chimpanzee Ham back at the early part of the year, and the thing that gave the astronauts and the entire Mercury project officers the greatest concern.
You see what I mean? Ha! You see what I mean? Ham. Ham had a leaky capsule. What else happened? Gus Grissom had a leaky capsule too.
Just after the Ham flight, they were concerned about this leakage in the capsule that Ham flew downrange and delayed the launch of an astronaut long enough for several more tests from Wallops Island, the smaller Cape Canaveral, to test capsule recovery procedures and to test the capsules themselves. However, until there is a full report from Grissom as to what happened to his capsule, this is all speculation.
Interesting. On July 21st, 1961, Grissom was pilot of the second Project Mercury flight, Mercury Redstone 4. I think you're ignoring all of the monkey flights when you say second. Grissom's space flight, which he named Liberty Bell 7, was launched from Cape Canaveral, and a suborbital flight that lasted 15 minutes and 37 seconds, and after splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean, the Liberty Bell 7's emergency explosive bolts unexpectedly fired, blowing off the hatch and causing water to flood into the spacecraft. Grissom quickly exited through the open hatch and into the ocean. While waiting for recovery helicopters from USS Randolph to pick him up, Grissom struggled to keep from drowning after his spacesuit began losing buoyancy due to an open air inlet. Grissom managed to stay afloat until he was pulled from the water by a helicopter and taken to the US Navy ship. In the meantime, another recovery helicopter tried to lift and retrieve the Liberty Bell 7, but the flooding spacecraft became too heavy, forcing the recovery crew to cut it loose, and it ultimately sank. Grissom stated that he had done nothing to cause the hatch to blow, and no definitive explanation for the incident was found. Grissom explained that he had gotten ahead in the mission timeline and removed the detonator cap and also pulled the safety pin. Once the pin was removed, the trigger was no longer held in place and could have inadvertently fired as a result of the ocean wave action bobbing as a result of helicopter rotor wash or other activity. NASA officials concluded Grissom had not necessarily inflated the firing of the explosive hatch, which would have required pressing a plunger, which required 5 pounds of force to depress. Hitting the metal trigger with the hand typically left a large bruise, but Grissom was found not to have any telltale hand bruising. And I see what you're saying in chat. That must have been a fun recovery mission, and guess what? It wasn't until 1999 that they lifted the Liberty Bell 7 off of the ocean floor, where they found no conclusive proof one way or another whether Gus Grissom had blown the explosive hatch preemptively. Fun fact. Fun. As in tragic. Gus Grissom was supposed to be the first man on the moon. Along with Ed White and Roger Chaffee, they were the crew of the Apollo 1. So why wasn't Gus Grissom the first man on the moon? Weird photo, right? Well, as Nash says, this poor bastard. Because it's on a test mission for Apollo 1 that something catastrophic happens to old Gus. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Those were supposed to be our brave men who were gonna go to the moon, and look what happened. Uh-oh. Right before he said, how are we supposed to communicate between two buildings? If we can't communicate between two buildings, how are we supposed to communicate between the moon? Weird. Weird. All weird.
Weird. Weird.
That's the space program for you. Ooh boy, that's nasty. That's a nasty burn. Yikes. Mysterious fire. So Gus Grissom never made it to the moon. But we gotta press on. This is for science, for human exploration. Totally not for putting a thermonuclear device in space. Which brings us to our next Mercury astronaut, John Glenn. John motherfucking Glenn aboard Friendship 7. Look how tiny that fucking capsule is, man. It makes sense to go up as a monkey in that capsule, but as a human being... that is a tin can in space, if I've ever seen one. But... look at that beautiful goddamn piece of Cold War technology that it's on, right? An Atlas rocket. Ugh. They still use those. There goes John Glenn aboard an Atlas intercontinental ballistic missile, rocket. Now you gotta understand that prior to this, Ham and Enos and Alan Shepard, they were just shooting people up into space and they were just falling right back down again. No one had orbited, made a full orbit until John motherfucking Glenn.
5 hours before he is destined to take a giant stride into history, Colonel John H. Glenn Jr. squeezes into his spacesuit. His smiling face belies the 10 postponements of his flight that have kept him grounded. This morning, the weather over Cape Canaveral and in the pickup areas is better, and there's an air of optimism as the colonel walks to the gantry elevator. Carrying his now familiar portable air conditioner, Glenn prepares to go to the 11th deck as clocks point to 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The skies are beginning to lighten, and a cool north wind rustles across the Cape. The colonel's date with destiny comes 10 months after the Russians claimed an orbital flight by Yuri Gagarin, and less than a year after Alan Shepard blazed a suborbital trail for the U.S. This is the climax of 3 years of training. This is the moment when the eyes of the world turn to Cape Canaveral. The Russian orbits were in a thick fog of secrecy. The United States stands or falls in the white-hot glare of worldwide publicity. In the capsule atop the Atlas missile, the colonel will be strapped to a contoured couch. Once in flight, the Mercury will be tilted so that the astronaut will ride backwards. The seconds tick off as his rendezvous with space approaches. The hatch cover causes a slight delay when a defective bolt is discovered. Then, millions are moved to silent prayer. Everything is go. The takeoff of the Atlas, blasted aloft by 360,000 pounds of thrust, carries the Mercury gracefully skyward. The Friendship 7, climbing rapidly out of the Earth's atmosphere, exerts a pressure of 6 times the force of gravity on the astronaut. Loud and clear, he reports back to Mercury Control, reading off his instruments, commenting on his reactions, all as coolly and calmly as if he was commuting on the 827. Glenn is able to control the yaw and pitch of the vehicle himself. Now comes the moment when the Mercury is turned so that Glenn will be seated facing backwards. He checks with ground control.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh, that view is tremendous. Roger, turnaround has started. Capsule turning around, and I could see the booster doing turnaround just a couple of 100 yards behind me. It was beautiful. Roger, 7. You have a go, at least 7 orbits. Roger, understand go for at least 7 orbits.
Actual pictures of Glenn in the capsule will give scientists the opportunity to study his reactions as he passes over the Canary Islands, Africa, the Indian Ocean, Australia, back across the Pacific and over the United States. He speeds at 17,500 miles an hour, reaching a high point of 160 miles and a low altitude of 99 miles. Each of the 3 orbits takes about 90 minutes. 3 times the colonel sees the sun rise within a period of 4 hours and 56 minutes. 3 times around the globe for a trip of 81,000 miles before he re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, a shield protecting the astronaut from the intense heat. The carrier Randolph is the command ship in the pickup area, but Glenn, instructed not to jettison his retro rockets, lands short of the carrier. Ground instruments indicated his heat shield was loose, and he was instructed to hold onto his rocket bank to help hold the shield in place. Right at hand, however, is the destroyer Noah, and she speeds to the capsule to take the vehicle and pilot aboard. Despite a few shaky moments among ground control personnel, Glenn is down, hale and hearty. With support cables attached, a pincer-like crane will lift the Friendship 7 aboard. End of a saga. The now famous Friendship 7 is safely lashed to the deck of the destroyer, and the crew prepares to help Glenn from the capsule. First, they attempt to help the colonel from his complex prison through the upper exit in the mouth. They encounter difficulties, and so it is decided to blow off the escape hatch cover. First glimpse of the conquering hero, Colonel John H. Glenn. He left his footprints among the stars. He has a grin as wide as the path he blazed as he rests briefly before being flown to the carrier Randolph by helicopter. He is lifted aboard in a maneuver that looks more dangerous than the flight itself. The helicopter takes him to the Randolph for a debriefing and examinations by medical men. The copter no sooner touches down on deck than Glenn gets a preview of the congratulations that are still to come. On every hand there is jubilation. On every side, smiles and cheers. He signs over his precious log and instruments to the National Space Administration. From here he goes to Grand Turk Island for further rest before the deluge. A deluge of honors a proud country waits to bestow on a brave man.
So move over, Ham. America has a new space hero. Colonel John fucking Glenn. You've been replaced, monkey. Liquid space courage, says James Campisi. I posit. By the way, James Campisi bought a Xanax. Fun show tonight, bro. Thank you very much, James Campisi. I will posit that at least the first half of the 20th century in America was built on methamphetamines. You want to know how you got these guys to do such crazy shit? Meth. Everybody was on fucking Adderall. No wonder they got shit done. Thank you very much, James Campisi. You can have fun monkey rocket research at buymeacoffee.com/mooseheaven. So John Glenn becomes a national fucking hero. Let's talk 6 degrees of Kennedy, shall we? Because I'm gonna do more Kennedy streams. I'm very fascinated by the Kennedy assassination. But let me try that again. I'm very fascinated by the Kennedy assassination because there are multiple angles to come at it from. And if you follow this stream, you will know we've covered the murder of J.D. Tippit. We've talked about Lee Harvey Oswald's dubious connections to pro-Castro Cuban groups and valid connections to disinformation, counterintelligence, Central Intelligence Agency sheep-dipped. I digress. We've talked about that. We've talked about Ruth Payne and her lesbian 16mm films. We've talked about Harry Thornley and his beatnik weirdo connection to Discordianism and his disinformation campaign. There's all kinds of weird connections to the Kennedy assassination, and I like to bring you things that maybe you haven't heard before in the general milieu of the Kennedy conspiracy tropes. So, let's play 6 degrees of the Kennedy assassination, shall we? Werner von Braun worked with Walter Dornberger, who's Arthur Young's boss at Bell Helicopter, Arthur Young is the stepfather of Michael Payne. Arthur Young just happens to, invent the fucking helicopter. And he just happens to be the stepfather of Michael Payne, who's the husband of Ruth Payne, who happens to be the weirdo chick that, consummate do-gooder Quaker that Lee Harvey Oswald's estranged wife is living with. You can only get that kind of information on Moose Heaven. Thank you very much, James Campisi. That was a long-winded thank you, but you've been around for a while. Thank you very much for your support. And it's our 6 degrees of Kennedy assassination here that we bring John Glenn into the mix. Because John Glenn becomes a national fucking hero. It's our first hour, the United States' first victory in the space race. And that's how we won the space race. Case closed. Nothing ever happened after that. Except that after that, John Glenn became the Democratic senator for Ohio. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that. Ohio. The astronaut to senator pipeline is weird.
Weird.
And nobody talks about it enough. But it's a thing. So John Glenn, national hero, goes on to become Democratic Senator of Ohio, and then what happens after that? He goes back into space in 1998. Becoming the first elderly man in space. I'm looking at you, Biden. John Glenn can do it. Weird. All of this space stuff is weird.
Weird.
Nazi rocket scientists and intercontinental ballistic missiles to put thermonuclear warheads in space. I mean, look at John Glenn, national hero. It's all weird. But what if I told you that the biggest threat to American superiority in space didn't come from the Soviets? No, sir. Take a guess. As we wind down this stream, it wasn't the Soviets who were the greatest threat to United States superiority in the space race. I hear what you're saying.
Let's say China. China. You go over to China. China. You take China. China. I love them. China. I have to have my China. China, because China.
They're scary too. They've got some Star Wars era space shit that they got a hold of, that they got the launch codes to. But what if I told you? Not Russia, it's not China. What if I told you? The greatest threat during the space race to American superiority in space came from Zambia and the Zambian space program. Here we see the brave Afronauts of the Zambia space program. I didn't make that up, that's what they're called. There's their leader. This is history. There they are training. Here, I'll put on the music. There they are, the brave Afronauts of the Zambian space program. That's their rocket, and that's the 17-year-old boy that they will launch into space to the moon. Board that rocket. That's their training. There's their rocket training. This is all real, by the way. I am not making this up. That's what they're called, the Afronauts of the Zambian space program. Look it up. I'm not making any of this up. There they are, training for their space program in their swing training. This is to simulate the enhanced gravity, the extra G's that they will experience during liftoff. This is head bobbing training, where they will bob their heads. This is barrel training, where they will roll in a barrel. Because space, because Zambia, I'm not making any of this up. The Zambian space program, everyone. You can look it up. See, you got it. Look, this is where Albert the monkey. Going back to that, look, you're gonna have to be recovered at sea. The Zambians were ready, training for it. So, you're asking, did they really take this seriously? Oh, yes, they did. Yes, they did. They wanted to beat America and the Soviets to the moon.
Mr. Encloser, is this the site for your rocket launching program? And could you tell me where your rocket is?
Yes, this is the rocket launching site, and my rocket is just here.
And what is the name of your organization?
The name of my organization is National Academy of Science, Space Research and Astronautical Research.
And what position do you hold in the organization?
I am the Director General of Science, Space Research and Philosophy.
And when will you fire off your first rocket, and where will you send it to?
I will fight from Lusaka, and it will go straight to the moon. It depends upon how much money I got. If I got enough funds, it would be very soon, or in the middle of 1965, if I've got enough funds. But if not, well, it will have to make me delay longer.
And what do you think the reaction of America and Russia will be to Zambia's joining in the space race?
Oh, they'll be only surprised because they will find that we're just, they will underestimate our resources plus the intelligence, but I'm sure we are catching them.
Yes, Mr. Encloser. Has President Kaunda given permission for your project? And has the Zambian government approved of it?
Not as yet, but they have taken interest in seeing what I'm doing because this is a novelty, some things you in this country. Go up in the sky, jump up. One.
Jump training.
Forward. Backward. Jump. Go up.
And so here at an abandoned farmhouse not far from Lusaka, we have a youthful group of budding astronauts playing at entering Zambia for the world's space race. However, to most Zambians, these people are just a bunch of crackpots. And from what I have seen today, I'm inclined to agree.
I don't know. I wouldn't count Zambia out in the space race. Wow. The race to space got wild. And I think we owe somebody an apology. I think we owe somebody an apology. He wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. You finally did it. You maniacs. You blew it up. God damn you. God damn you to hell. I love you, Dr. Zaius.
Dr. Zaius. What's wrong with me? I think you're crazy. Want a second opinion? You're also lazy. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Oh, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Can I play the piano anymore? Of course you can. Well, I couldn't before. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Oh, Dr. Zaius.
Help me, Dr. Zaius.
Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Oh, get your paws off me, you dirty ape. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius.
God damn you. Thank you all for this strange and wild journey into the stratosphere. As we strap monkeys to rockets and launch off into space. Thank you all. I love you all. But we've reached that time in the program where we must say adieu, and I will be back. I can't tell you when, but I want to do more deep dive stuff on the Kennedy assassination. So I'll be back in a few weeks, probably with that. But thank you all so much for tuning in to this program where we explore monkey rockets. And we salute you, all of our canine and primate astronauts, for your sacrifice, for absolutely scientific purposes and no other reason. But guys, want to send you off with a little tribute to our Astro Chimp friends. And until we meet again, guys, in the pursuit of truth, trust no one. Good night, and long live the Astro Chimp.
control to Astro Chimp Ham. Ground control to Astro Chimp Ham. Eat your banana pellets and put your monkey suit on. 10. Ground control 9, to Astro Chimp Ham. 7, 6. Commencing countdown, something that rhymes with ham. 3, 2. We'll shock your feet 1. If you don't do just what we say. This is ground control to Astro Chimp Ham. You really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose diapers you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare.